Okay, hi everyone. Let me know if you can hear me now. So I'm gonna wait a while for some of you all to log on and let me know if you all are able to hear me. Okay, can you all hear me now? Okay, great. Hi Tikia. Hi Jamaica. So you all could probably tell me what school you all go to. So I am Miss Fuchong if you all don't know my name. I teach at St. Francis Girls College and I started doing YouTube in 2020 because of the pandemic and so many students wanted help. So in 2022, it's a lot more difficult to get in more YouTube because we're not working from home. But I'm trying my best to balance all of the classes, especially CAPE and CSEC, right? So I'm going to go through the broad topics so that you'll have a better idea of pinpointing how to study and share some tips. So the map work skills normally include, of course, settlement, drainage, and land use patterns, right? So the first portion of map work is always going to deal with your practical skills. So your angular bearing, your grid referencing, distances, gradients, anything to do with practical skills, right? And then the last portion of the exam, the later part like G, HI, those questions are usually more describe or explain the drainage patterns or give features of the drainage patterns or settlement patterns, relief and land use, right? So those are usually covered on your normal map week section. Is the last portion. What I usually stress is if you are not good in map work, that you spend some time focusing on your map work because the map work skills is weighted just as heavy as every other portion of the syllabus. So your exam is split into four. You have your map work and map work. You have section one, section two, section three, which would be natural system, natural human systems, right? And within all of that, they're going to test the practical skills. So, what are your practical skills? You all know that first question that comes on the syllabus, the first question in each section, where you have like to draw a graph or to interpret a graph or to read from a diagram. That is testing your practical skills. So your geography CSEC exam is going to be marked using these three parts. You have the practical skills, and then you have use of knowledge, and I think it's one more thing. Let me just pull it up so that I don't say the wrong thing. So you're going to be, so when the exam is marked, you're going to be marked on practical skills, which would be that first portion. They're going to test you the knowledge, which is like the easy part of the exam, which is like knowledge and comprehension. So define, describe, and then the portion of the exam where you all perform, or students, I shouldn't say you, or students generally perform very poorly, is the use of knowledge, right? Use of knowledge involves more analytical skills. So that is where students lose the majority of their marks because they are unable to explain properly. So with the map work, a lot of the times students do not obtain 50%, right? And that is where you lose marks and you don't get that grade one, that you're looking for, and you would probably get a grade 3 or a grade 2, right? So to do well on your exam, you need to master not just the practical skills, but you see that use of knowledge section in your map work, and all other sections of the exam. That last question, you need to practice on explaining, and you will find those questions stated in your objectives of the syllabus. So if you have your syllabus, you would see it will tell you explain or describe or compare and contrast, and those objectives is what you really want to focus on. So I usually have a map work PowerPoint that I put together and template last year in 2020. I went through most of it. I think the entire thing on YouTube. You can go and find it. If you cannot find it, just let me know and I can probably post the link for you all in Discord. Right? So the map work on describing land use patterns, settlement patterns, drainage patterns. I have done that video before and it's done in a lot of detail, right? Apart from that, if you feel like you need additional help, I'm doing a crash course just focusing. The majority of it is going to be focusing on your map work, analytical skill, the use of knowledge, describing, explaining, comparing, contrasting, and that portion of the exam. I'm not going to focus on things like describe or define because you all could get those 2 marks, 3 marks question easily, right? So that is the map skills. Then they go into coastal environment, which I love. So if you all want me to go over coast, that is something I can do because I love coast, right? Coastal landform, coastal environment is really one of my favorite topics. And I think this coastal environment may also be tested in your map work skills. They may give you a sketch to draw of the coastline and you may have to replicate it. Do you all Are you all familiar with doing sketches, replicating the sketch map, a sketch area? Okay. Shamika is from Princeton. Nice to have you. Tiki, you said I think you're from Providence. That's cool. I know the teachers in Providence. They are my friends. So with sketches, right? What they do, they're gonna give you an insert, and it's gonna come with the eastings and northings in the form of the topographic map, an area. They're going to give you the area that they want you to sketch. And for your SBA, you should have done a sketch, right? A sketch map, which would be replicating that area of the map. And I can probably do a live where I show you all one, right? There's this particular map book that I use. It's called the Essential Skills to Map Reading. I know it's a bit late for you all to purchase books, but if you all have that book or you have been using that book, it comes with maps to the back, and there's also a sketch in the map that you can practice, right? So I think coastal environment may come also in the map book. That's how they have that. So the coastal environment, I think you also need to define the coastal area. What is the coastal area? And then you're going to, of course, the characteristics of the coastal environment. So you need to know things like the fetch. What is the fetch? What is a wave, right? And then you go into the coastal processes, right? Because you cannot go into coastal landforms without knowing the coastal processes, because they may ask you to describe some erosional and depositional features. So they might ask you to explain how headlands and bays are formed, or how spits and tombolas are formed. And if they give you a question like that, of course, you're going to have to know the coastal processes. So if you all use the Caribbean environment, this green book, do you all use this book in school? Anyone use that book in school? Right. So if you use that book in school, it's broken down pretty nicely in terms of coast. So you see coast, you have waves and actions, you have cliffs and marine erosion, bays and beaches, spits, tombolos, bars, and all of that takes care of of your coastal environment, erosional and depositional, right? Let me show you all the map reading book that I'm referring to. So this is a map reading book. It's called The Essential Guide to Map Reading. Do you all use that book? And that book is really good because it actually comes with maps that you can use at home for practice, right? I'm not too sure if you all had a map reading school, but I don't know how you can do geography without a map reading book, right? Especially one with maps. So that is the one that I recommend for my students, and that's what we use in school. I'm going to show you all what the insert will look like and what the sketch should look like. So this segment is a segment of Grenada sorters, and this is the insert. So if you look through the exam papers, you all would see sometimes they give you a grid. The grid is going to look like this, and it's going to be made up of eastings and northings, and they're going to ask you to put in certain things. So on this particular map, which is a coastal question, coastal environment, they said on the grid provided, draw an outline of the coastline, which means you're going to be replicating the coastline of the map that they gave you. And then they ask you to denote an area of a bay beach, which would be, of course, like a headland and bay, a headland, an area of cliff, coast, and a stack. So you have to be able to identify those features of the map and then replicate it on the grid provided. Everyone understand that? Am I going fast? Too fast? If I'm going too fast, just let me know so that I can slow down. All right, so you will notice with coastal landforms, they also put coastal processes, as I was just saying, wave processes. You cannot study coastal landforms without coastal processes, and also it's the same for wave processes. So wave, you're going to have erosional and depositional, so constructive, right, and destructive waves. You discuss the swash and the backwash. And then they go into the broad topics that they gave you all. It's really, really nice, right? Actually, I think the exam should be very good, at least if you all study and you all pay attention to what I'm saying. Weathering and erosion. So this is a nice topic, weathering and erosion. I think I did a video on it. If not, I should have some recordings that I where I have done it before, and I will upload it. So you have, of course, weathering, the difference between weathering, erosion. What is the difference? Can you tell the difference? What's the difference between weathering and erosion? Right? That's a major thing that you need to know. So defining the terms, the types of weathering. Here they focus on physical and chemical weathering. So physical weathering is the breakdown or the disintegration of rocks, whereas chemical weathering is a change or the chemical change or alteration of the rock, right? So you're going to need to know the process of physical weathering or the types of physical weathering. For example, frost action, right? So frost action, you will need to know, apart from frost action on the physical, there's also exfoliation, right? And then pressure release. So those are the common ones. And on the syllabus, I think they only focus on exfoliation and frost action, right? Or freeze and thaw. You have and chemical weathering. The one that we are most common with on the syllabus is, of course, carbonation and solution. So carbonation and solution, um, and then hydrolysis, right? The book also have oxidation, but they focus on um, carbonation with respect to carbonation and solution in limestone environment, hydrolysis and oxidation. And then, of course, you have biological or biotic weathering, which involves a bit of physical and chemical, but you have plants and organism that that creates the weathering process, right? So that is weathering. Then they go into types of economic activities in the Caribbean. So I think last year they brought economic activities. So types of economic activities, you're gonna focus on primary, secondary, tertiary activities, right? And you're going to have to get your example for each one. So on the syllabus, on the economic activities, right? Types of economic activities, you have different options. So you don't have to learn all, right? It's an or. So for example, just give me a second to find it. Okay, so for economic activities, you have to define primary, secondary, and tertiary activities. Of course, you're going to have to name and locate, meaning give examples of primary industries in the Caribbean. So, for example, like forestry in Guyana or bauxite mining in Jamaica. Secondary industries, they want you to focus on the food processing industry in Trinidad. You compare that with Singapore, right? And then they have food processing, and you compare that with Hong Kong in terms of secondary. And then for tertiary, of course, you focus on things like tourism in the Caribbean. So you want to give examples. Um, you will notice under the content area of economic activities, you have to focus on one, and you are focusing on, so pay attention to this. So they want you to name and locate areas within Caribbean countries that would have the following resources: forest, limestone, bauxite, petroleum, natural gas, etc. That falls under economic activity as well. But they want you to focus on particular sectors, right? So you have to look at the factors that influence the location of industries. The factors that influence location of industries on the economic activity will include your raw materials, energy, transport, labor, market, capital, right? So for primary, you have a choice between fishing or forestry. You also have a choice between oil and natural gas and bauxite. And then for secondary, you have the option of food processing within CARICOM, and comparing that to Singapore. So you have those choices. And then, of course, tertiary, you're going to have tourism. And again, factors that influence the growth and development of tourism in the Caribbean. So physical, historical, cultural, man-made role of the government in tourism, right? I am not too sure what case study you all would have done in school, but you all should have case studies for those by now. Do you all have case studies? And if you don't, the book, The Caribbean Environment, has some. And there's also the New Integrated Geography by Sheldon Blasdell. He's also a teacher, and his book is quite comprehensive. So if you all don't have case studies, I can post the PowerPoints of them so that you can have that to review. Am I going too fast? Anybody have any questions? If you have questions, make sure you ask, right? Manufacturing sector in the Caribbean. So when they talk about manufacturing in the Caribbean, this is going to be focusing on your secondary industry, which would be, of course, food processing in the Caribbean, CARICOM. So you can look at Trinidad and Tobago. I did an extensive session on that. So you should also look for that video. They have advantages and disadvantages, challenges faced by different industries. So, what are the advantages and disadvantages that is facing, that is, say, the primary industries, oil and gas sector, or the food processing industry? You'll have to also cover that under economic activity. Then they're going to a really nice area again, because the course, they bring back coral reefs here. So they are now looking at ecosystems. So you have coral reefs and mangroves, which are really nice, right? Really straightforward. So in your book, that begins on chapter page 88, coral reefs, and it speaks to coral reefs and beach erosion. And you should also have mangroves, study mangroves as well, right? So under that, of course, you're going to learn the types of coral reefs, fringing, barrier, atolls. You want to learn their formation. You want to learn the factors that influence the growth of corals, right? Or the necessary conditions for the growth of corals. Warm temperatures, you have to know the temperature range, shallow water, clear oxygenated water that sunlight can pass through, right? Also, you're going to talk about threats to coral reefs and also the advantages of coral reefs. Why are they important? So things like shoreline protection, it's a form of livelihood, right? The fisheries industries, which most Caribbean countries depend on coral reefs for its survival, right? Mangroves, how are mangroves important? The same thing. You should know the types of mangroves, the red, black, and white mangroves, and again, the importance of mangroves. Mangrove, again, as a source of shoreline protection, mangroves in terms of providing a habitat for other organisms. They're also source of livelihoods. People go utilize it in terms of tours. For example, the Caroni Bird Sanctuary is within the Caroni Swamp, right? You have tour guides, you have fishing operators, etc. And then from there, they went into tourism, but they focus on the cruise ship industry. So, tourism and the cruise ship industry. So, you can look at Barbados in the Caribbean, especially in this Los Angeles, Caribbean. Barbados is very close to us, and they have actually a cruise ship port. Jamaica, you can focus on, right? Countries that have that great influence in cruise tourism. You have to find your case study and go through that. So on page 272 in your text, 272, it covers cruise ship tourism and the benefits of cruise ship tourism and the problems that exist with it. Of course, the cruise ship industry has a lot of disadvantages. For example, right, um, when you have cruise arrivals coming in for the day, sometimes they don't spend money within the country because everything is provided for them on ship. So they don't patronize the food, they may not buy the local craft, right? It also causes a lot of pollution It can damage reefs in some of the shallow areas, right? There's a lot of food wastage, right? So there are a lot of disadvantages, but there are also some benefits to it. And then they talk about sustainable management of resources. So after you look at coral reefs, you look at how it provides a major benefit to the fisheries industry. You talk about sustainable management. What is sustainable management of resources? So, sustainability is how you preserve your resource for future generations to benefit. So, you might want to implement things like marine parks, or you have a season where you open fishing or fisheries of different species. You do not you do not have an all year round open season. So you have an open and closed season. They may only be able to fish certain type of species, ones that are not threatened, or they may be only allowed to catch certain sizes, right? They have also marine protected areas. So that will all come under sustainable management of resources. So and that is the broad topics. I think it's a really nice layout. It's not, um, you know, very difficult. You all just need to buckle down and start studying. Focus on your analytical use of knowledge area. Those questions that are 6 marks. Those questions that are 8 marks. Do not pay attention to the 2 marks, 4 marks, because those are marks that you can pick up easily, right? So, how do you want to approach studying, right? A good thing is you can probably look through all of the areas and pull out all of the question topics, let us say for the past 10 years, on the coastal environment, processes, weathering, coral reefs, manufacturing, economic activities. You go through the syllabus, you highlight. If by now you haven't printed your past papers, maybe you can print it, or if you're okay with it in soft copy, find a way where you can copy and paste all of the questions into a document that will be covered by the broad topics. So that way you can practice answering those questions. That is the first thing that you can do. Then you can also look at the objectives of these different broad topic areas. Go to your syllabus and look at the objectives on the course. See what they want you to explain, see what they want you to describe or compare and contrast, right? And that way you will know how to study because you know how they can phrase the question. There's also the report. So when you are doing past papers and you have pull out the past papers to practice, there is also the CSEC reports that comes out every year. You can download it from cxc.org. The file is too big for me to upload in Discord. It's in my Google Classroom. I can probably try to see how I can get that to you all. But the reports is going to give you, sometimes they give you like what answer they wanted, what is the response that they wanted for this particular answer. Also, some of you all may have marking schemes. You could go through the questions that would be related to the broad topics that you have the mark schemes for and see what are the responses they want to give you. And that is how you really should prepare, and that way you have an idea, right? So map work, you focus on your marks that are weighted heavier. You want to look at the 6 marks question, 8 mark question, those on settlement, drainage, land use. Section 1, section 2, section 3, you want to focus on those questions again. Anybody have any questions? So I think that's about it. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Let your friends know, share, and also I'm going to do some of the topics like y'all. I want y'all to let me know what topics you think might be most difficult for you and you would probably want me to touch on quickly and go through past papers on them. So tell me what topics you think might be most difficult for you. You can leave a comment, right? I will see it and I will go through it. We have any comments? Okay, so I'm gonna leave now. Remember to say either in the Discord or on the live what area you might want me to cover, and I can go through. Definitely, I'm gonna go through some of the past papers on manufacturing. I pulled out a lot of those manufacturing those past papers, so I can share that with you all on Discord, and we can go through some of it. So, Kayla, I will definitely do that. Right? I will try to do another one this week. I will post it on the YouTube feed before or on the School of Geography YouTube, Facebook, or Discord. Tourism, cruise tourism, I can do that as well. Any other requests? You're welcome, Kayla. If y'all are interested in the crash course, I'm actually going to be focusing on a lot more of the use of knowledge questions, right? You can always shoot me a message at 302-6933. I will also share Discord. Let me share the Discord for those who are not in Discord. Because Discord has all the past papers and everything. It's easier than everyone keeps asking me to share the same thing over and over, right? So this is a Discord link. You can join, and then my number is right if you all are interested. Okay, have a good evening. Bye, guys.